The elevator stopped on the 67th floor with a sharp, almost painful sound. The doors opened, revealing a corridor far too silent for that hour, as if the entire world had been switched off inside. Emma Clarke walked slowly, feeling the strange sensation of being watched. The CEO's secretary wasn't at her desk. The lights were dim, the silence heavy. She knocked on the door only once. "Come in." His voice came before she touched the handle. Adrian Hale's office was enormous, but at that moment it felt small, compressed by his presence. He stood with his back turned, staring at New York through the window, as if waiting for something terrible to emerge from the darkness. "Mr. Hale, you asked to see me?" He turned slowly. His eyes, clear, cold, and carrying something she'd never seen before, pierced through her. He took a deep breath, like someone who had finally made an impossible decision. "I need you to pretend something." "What? That you're my wife?" Her heart skipped a beat. She opened her mouth to laugh, protest, question, but he raised his hand. "Don't ask why." His voice trembled, and that frightened her more than any words. "The reason," he took a step closer, "would terrify you." Silence. Then, almost in a broken whisper, "And if you refuse, we'll both be dead before dawn." Emma's legs felt weak. This had to be some kind of sick joke. Adrian Hale, the man who barely acknowledged her existence in 18 months of employment, was standing 3 feet away, his jaw clenched, his hands trembling ever so slightly. "I don't understand," she managed. "You're not supposed to." He moved to his desk, pulled out a thick envelope. 72 hours, 1 corporate trip. You play the role perfectly, and when we return, you get this. He tossed the envelope onto the glass surface between them. Emma stared at it, but didn't move. "How much?" "More than you make in a year." His voice was flat now, businesslike. "Enough to clear your mother's medical debt. Enough to stop working 2 jobs. Enough to breathe." Her blood ran cold. "How do you know about—" "I know everything about everyone who works for me." He cut her off, but there was no cruelty in it, just exhaustion. "Especially those I'm about to drag into hell." "This is insane." "Yes. You could hire an actress, a professional. They've already been compromised." He said it so matter-of-factly that it took her a moment to process. Compromised by who? Adrian's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "People who believe I know something I shouldn't. People who are watching everyone in my circle, everyone except you." "Why me?" "Because you're invisible." The words should have stung, but the way he said them, with something almost like regret, made them feel different. "You're the only person in this building no one has noticed. The only one they haven't catalogued, investigated, threatened." Emma's hands were shaking now. "This sounds like something out of a nightmare?" Adrian's laugh was hollow. "Welcome to my life." She should run. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, walk out, and forget this conversation ever happened. But something held her there. Maybe it was the money. Maybe it was the raw desperation in his eyes, a vulnerability she never imagined someone like Adrian Hale could possess. What exactly would I have to do? Something flickered in his expression. Relief, hope. Attend a conference in Vienna, stay by my side, play the devoted wife. He paused. And most importantly, help me figure out who's trying to kill me. 20 minutes later, Emma sat in the same chair, a glass of water in her trembling hands, reading through the most surreal document of her life. The contract was 12 pages long. It covered everything: wardrobe, provided; backstory, memorized; public behavior, affectionate but not excessive; private boundaries, strictly maintained; and compensation, jaw-dropping. But it was the final clause that made her hands stop shaking and start sweating. In the event of physical danger, Party A, Adrian Hale, assumes full responsibility for Party B's, Clarke, safety, including but not limited to relocation, identity protection, and financial compensation for any trauma incurred. "You're serious about the danger part," she whispered. Adrian sat across from her, his fingers steepled under his chin. "I've never been more serious about anything." "Then why not go to the police?" "Because I don't know who I can trust." His voice dropped. 3 years ago, my wife died in what was ruled an accident. Car crash, black ice, no witnesses. He paused, and Emma saw genuine pain flash across his face. Except there was no black ice that night. The weather was clear. Emma's throat tightened. "You think she was murdered?" "I know she was." He stood, walked to the window again, his apparent refuge. Catherine was an investigative journalist. She was working on something big, something that involved people with the kind of power that makes evidence disappear and witnesses go silent. What was she investigating? "I don't know." The admission seemed to cost him. "She never told me. Said it was safer that way, that if I knew I'd become a target too." His reflection in the glass looked haunted. "Turns out I became one anyway." "Because they think you know?" "Because she was my wife. They assume she told me everything." He turned back to face her. "For 3 years, I've been followed. My communications monitored, my associations investigated. Anyone who gets close to me gets examined, or worse." "What's worse?" "My last 2 personal assistants quit within 6 months. One moved to another country. The other—" He trailed off. "Let's just say she was thoroughly convinced that working for me was hazardous to her health." Emma set down the water glass before she could drop it. "And you want me to pretend to be your wife, to get even closer to this danger? I want you to be so close that you're untouchable." Adrian moved back to his desk, pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, and probably worth more than her car. "In 3 hours, we'll be on a private jet to Vienna. You'll be wearing this. And for 72 hours, you'll be the one person they can't touch without exposing themselves." "I don't follow." "They're watching me to find out what I know. If they hurt my wife, they show their hand. They reveal that they're the threat, that Catherine's death wasn't an accident, that everything I've suspected is true." His eyes locked onto hers. "You're not bait, Emma. You're my shield, and maybe my only chance to finally see their faces." The private jet was obscenely luxurious. Emma had never been on a plane like this, had never imagined they existed outside of movies. Cream leather seats, polished wood accents, ambient lighting that somehow made everything feel both intimate and infinite. Adrian sat across from her, a tablet in his hands, his focus intense. He'd barely spoken since they boarded. A woman in a crisp uniform appeared, Diane, the flight attendant who'd greeted them with the kind of discretion that suggested she'd seen stranger things than a CEO, traveling with his suddenly materialized wife. "We'll be taking off in 10 minutes, Mr. Hale. Can I get you anything?" "We're fine, thank you." Diane disappeared into the forward cabin. Silence settled between them again. Emma twisted the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, which unnerved her. How had he known her size? "You're wondering about the ring," Adrian said without looking up. "Among other things. I had its size based on the gloves you wear in winter. They're a size 6.5. The ring needed to be a 5. He finally looked at her. "I noticed details." "Apparently. I also noticed that you're terrified, but trying not to show it. That you're wondering if you made a catastrophic mistake, and that you're already planning your exit strategy." Emma's jaw tightened. "Am I that obvious?" "No." His expression softened slightly. "But I've been where you are. Catherine and I met under complicated circumstances. She was investigating my company. I knew she was getting close to something dangerous, and I still let myself fall in love with her." His voice cracked on the last word. Biggest mistake of my life. Loving her, not protecting her better. He set down the tablet. I won't make that mistake again. The jet engines hummed to life. Emma felt the aircraft begin to move. Tell me about the conference, she said, desperate to focus on something concrete. What's the cover story? Adrian pulled out a folder, slid it across to her. Inside were photographs, documents, a fabricated history. We've been married for 8 months. We met at a charity gala. You were working the event as coordinator. We kept it quiet to avoid media scrutiny. This is your first public appearance as my wife. Emma studied the photos, pictures of her and Adrian that she'd never seen before because they'd never been taken, except they looked real, professionally done. Her in an evening gown she'd never worn, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling like they knew a beautiful secret. How did you... Photo manipulation. I have people. He pointed to another document. Your backstory. Graduated from Columbia with a degree in communications. Worked in event planning for 5 years before moving into corporate administration. Parents divorced when you were 12. Mother lives in Connecticut. Father remarried, lives in Seattle. You have a younger brother studying marine biology in California. All of that's true, Emma whispered. I told you. I know everything about everyone who works for me. His eyes met hers. And in 72 hours, you're going to know things about me that no one else does. The jet lifted off the ground. Vienna was stunning. All Baroque architecture and old-world elegance wrapped in modern sophistication. Their hotel was a converted palace overlooking the Danube, the kind of place where royalty once plotted wars over breakfast. Their suite had separate bedrooms. Adrian had been firm about that boundary, but shared living spaces, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble everywhere. A chandelier that probably cost more than Emma's entire education. The opening reception is in 3 hours, Adrian said, setting down their bags. Or rather, having them set down by staff who moved like elegant ghosts. You'll need to change. Everything you need is in your room. Emma found a wardrobe full of clothes that all fit her perfectly. Evening gowns, cocktail dresses, casual wear, shoes, accessories. A complete life she'd never lived. She chose a midnight blue dress, simple but elegant, and stood before the mirror trying to recognize herself. When she emerged, Adrian was already dressed in a charcoal suit that made him look even more intimidating than usual. But when he saw her, something shifted in his expression. You look... He stopped, cleared his throat. Perfect. You look perfect. Thank you. Emma smoothed the dress nervously. Are we expecting trouble tonight? I'm always expecting trouble. He moved to her, held out his arm. But tonight we're just a couple attending a boring corporate reception. Smile, laugh at my jokes, even though I'm not funny. Let me touch your back occasionally. Make them believe it. Emma slipped her arm through his. What if I can't? You will. His voice was quiet, but certain. Because you're stronger than you think. And because, for reasons I don't fully understand, I trust you. The reception was held in a ballroom that looked like it had hosted centuries of secrets. Crystal glittered overhead. Well-dressed people moved in careful orbits, their conversations layered with subtext. Adrian guided Emma through the crowd with practiced ease, introducing her to executives and investors and people whose names she immediately forgot. He kept his hand on the small of her back, warm, steady, protective. Mr. Hale. A man approached, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, smile sharp as a knife. What a surprise to see you here, and with company. Adrian's hand pressed slightly firmer against Emma's back. A warning. Emma, this is Victor Kozlov. He runs the European division of Meridian Holdings. Emma extended her hand. Pleasure to meet you. Victor's handshake lasted a fraction too long. His eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. I wasn't aware Adrian had remarried. My condolences on your first wife, by the way. Such a tragedy. Thank you. Adrian's voice was ice. Emma and I prefer to keep our personal life private. Clearly. Victor's smile widened. Those secrets have a way of surfacing, don't they? Especially in our line of work. Some secrets are worth keeping, Emma heard herself say. Both men looked at her. My husband's first marriage ended in grief. Our marriage began in hope. I'd prefer to focus on the future rather than dissect the past. Silence. Victor's expression flickered. Surprise, calculation. Then he laughed. Well said, Mrs. Hale. Well said indeed. He turned to Adrian. You've found yourself a clever one. I hope you're keeping her close. Closer than you could imagine, Adrian replied. Victor drifted away into the crowd. Adrian's hand trembled slightly against Emma's back. That was him, he whispered. That was the man I think had Catherine killed. Back in their suite, the elegant facade crumbled. Adrian paced like a caged animal, while Emma kicked off her heels and tried to process what had just happened. Victor Kozlov was Catherine's primary target, Adrian said, the words spilling out now that they were alone. She never told me directly, but I found her notes after she died, hidden in a false bottom of her desk drawer. Names, dates, financial transactions, all pointing to him. What was he doing? Money laundering, probably. Arms dealing, possibly. But the details were incomplete. She hadn't finished the investigation. He stopped pacing, faced her. And now he knows about you. That was the point, wasn't it? Emma's voice was steadier than she felt. You wanted him to see me, to react. Yes, but... Adrian ran his hands through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. I didn't expect him to be so... interested. What does that mean? It means he'll investigate you. He'll look for vulnerabilities. And when he finds your mother's medical debt, your second job, your financial struggles... Adrian's jaw clenched. He'll know you can be bought. Emma stood up. Then let him think that. What? If he believes I'm with you for money, that makes me predictable, controllable. She moved closer to Adrian, her mind racing. But what if that's our advantage? What if we let him think he can turn me against you? Adrian stared at her. That's dangerous. This entire situation is dangerous. Emma's fear was transforming into something else. Determination, maybe, or anger at being underestimated. You said I'm invisible, that no one noticed me. Well, maybe it's time they do. Maybe it's time I give Victor exactly what he's looking for. Which is? An opening. Emma held his gaze. A way to get close to you through me. A vulnerability he thinks he can exploit. Understanding dawned in Adrian's eyes. You want to let him recruit you. I want to let him think he's recruiting me, Emma corrected, while we figure out what he's really hiding. For a long moment, Adrian said nothing. Then slowly a smile crossed his face, the first genuine one she'd seen. Catherine would have liked you, he said quietly. Tell me about her, the real her. Adrian moved to the window, his refuge again. She was brilliant, fearless. She'd walk into a room of powerful men and dismantle their lies with a smile. His reflection looked sad. She was everything I wasn't. Bold where I was cautious, open where I was closed. She made me believe I could be better. You loved her. I loved who I was when I was with her. He turned back. But I was so focused on protecting my company, my reputation, my carefully constructed life that I didn't see the real threat until it was too late. She needed protection, and I gave her distance, space, professional courtesy. His voice broke. I gave her everything except what she actually needed. Emma's heart ached for him. That's why you're doing this. It's not just about finding who killed her. It's about not making the same mistake twice. You're the variable they don't know, Adrian said. You're my second chance to do this right, to protect someone instead of failing them. He stepped closer. But I need you to understand something. If this goes wrong, if Victor figures out what we're doing, there's no going back. You become a permanent target, and I don't know if I can live with another death on my conscience." "Then we don't fail," Emma said simply. It happened the next morning. Emma was in the hotel's garden cafe, pretending to read a book while Adrian attended a morning session. The plan was simple: be visible, be alone, be vulnerable. She didn't have to wait long. "Mrs. Hale." Victor appeared like smoke, his presence announced only by his shadow falling across her table. "May I join you?" Emma looked up, arranged her features into polite surprise. "Mr. Kozlov, of course." He sat, ordered an espresso with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. "I hope you'll forgive my directness," he began, "but I find myself curious about you." "Oh?" "Adrian Hale is, let's say, notoriously private. Yet here you are, his wife, appearing seemingly from nowhere." Victor's smile was meant to be charming, but landed somewhere closer to predatory. "It suggests either a great love story or a very interesting arrangement." Emma set down her book. "Can't it be both?" "Perhaps." He sipped his espresso. "Though in my experience great loves are rarely convenient, and this marriage of yours seems remarkably convenient. What are you implying?" "Nothing offensive, I assure you." Victor leaned back. "I merely recognize a practical woman when I see one. Someone intelligent enough to understand that sometimes security is more valuable than sentiment." Emma felt her pulse quicken. This was it. The recruitment pitch Adrian had predicted. "Security is important," she admitted carefully, "especially when you've spent your whole life one emergency away from financial ruin." Victor's eyes gleamed. "Precisely. And Adrian is a very wealthy man. But wealth comes with complications, especially for someone carrying as many secrets as your husband." "What secrets?" "The dangerous kind." Victor leaned forward slightly. "The kind that got his first wife killed. The kind that could get his second wife killed too, unless she's smart enough to make her own arrangements." Emma's mouth went dry. "Are you threatening me?" "On the contrary." His voice was smooth as silk. "I'm offering you protection, a safety net. Because when Adrian's past finally catches up to him, and it will, you'll need friends in powerful places. And you're offering to be that friend? For a price!" Victor pulled out a business card, slid it across the table. "Nothing dramatic, just information. Details about Adrian's meetings, his communications, his state of mind. The kinds of things a wife would naturally know." Emma stared at the card. "You're asking me to spy on my husband. I'm asking you to ensure your own survival." Victor stood, straightened his jacket. "Think about it, Mrs. Hale. Adrian is a man drowning in ghosts. You don't have to drown with him." He started to walk away, then paused. "Oh, and Emma? Your mother's hospital bills? The experimental treatment her insurance won't cover? Consider it handled. A gesture of good faith." He disappeared into the morning crowd, leaving Emma alone with racing thoughts and the weight of a terrible decision she'd never actually have to make. "He took the bait," Emma reported that evening, pacing their suite, while Adrian listened with frightening intensity. "What exactly did he offer?" "Money for information. He mentioned my mother's medical bills." Emma paused. "How did he know about the experimental treatment? That's not public information." "Because he's been investigating you since the moment he saw us together." Adrian's voice was tight with controlled anger. "He's thorough, which means we need to be more thorough. What's our next move?" Adrian pulled out his laptop, began typing rapidly. "We give him what he wants, information, but we control what he receives. Feed him intelligence that seems valuable but actually leads him nowhere. Make him think you're cooperating while we figure out his real game. You've done this before." I've spent 3 years learning to think like the people who killed my wife. His fingers flew across the keyboard. I've mapped their networks, studied their methods, traced their money. Victor is part of a larger organization, one that operates in the shadows of legitimate business. They broker information, leverage influence, eliminate obstacles. Like Catherine. Like Catherine. Adrian's jaw clenched. She was investigating a human trafficking network that used legitimate corporations as cover. Victor's company was one of the fronts. She was getting close to exposing everything when... He trailed off. Emma sat beside him. When they killed her. When they made it look like an accident, Adrian corrected. But she was too careful a driver, too aware of her surroundings. And the brake lines on her car had been recently serviced. There was no mechanical reason for that crash. But you couldn't prove it. Not without evidence. And every piece of evidence I tried to gather disappeared or was discredited. His voice carried years of frustration. Police dismissed my concerns as grief-driven paranoia. Investigators found nothing suspicious. Even Catherine's own newspaper backed away from her stories, claimed they were unsubstantiated, because Victor's organization got to them first, because people with that much power can rewrite reality. Adrian turned to face her fully. That's why you're so important, Emma. You're the piece they didn't account for, the variable in their equation. They spent 3 years cataloging everyone in my circle, but they never noticed you. And now that you're here, pretending to be compromised, you're the Trojan horse they'll actually invite inside. Emma's heart hammered. What if I can't pull this off? What if Victor realizes you're already pulling it off? Adrian's hand covered hers. You handled him perfectly this morning, showed enough vulnerability to be believable, enough intelligence to be useful. He thinks he's manipulating you, which means we're manipulating him. For how much longer? 1 more day. Adrian pulled up a file on his laptop, dense with names, dates, locations. Tomorrow night there's a private meeting. Major players in Victor's network. Officially, it's a business dinner. Actually, it's where they coordinate their operations. Catherine had discovered the location before she died. I've been trying to get an invitation for 3 years. And now you have one. Now we have one. He met her eyes. Married couples are often invited together. It gives these events a veneer of legitimacy, and Victor will want you there. He'll want to see if you're truly willing to betray me. So we go to the dinner. We go to the dinner, Adrian confirmed. We collect evidence, we expose everything, and then... His voice hardened. I make sure they pay for what they took from me. The final night arrived with the weight of inevitability. Emma wore a red dress, Adrian's choice. Power color, he'd said. Let them see someone who's made a decision. And then the dinner was held in a private room at one of Vienna's most exclusive restaurants. Heavy curtains, dim lighting, 7 people total, including Victor, Adrian and Emma. Introductions were made, smiles were exchanged, wine was poured. And under the table, Emma's phone recorded everything. The conversation started innocuously enough. Business trends, market forecasts, the usual corporate theatre. But gradually, as drinks flowed and comfort grew, the real discussion emerged. Shipping routes through Eastern Europe, inventory that needed special handling, clients who required discretion. The language was careful, coded, but Emma understood enough to make her blood run cold. They were discussing human trafficking like it was a logistics problem. Victor caught her eye across the table, a silent question. Are you paying attention? Emma lifted her wineglass slightly, a small gesture that could mean anything but confirmed everything he wanted to believe. Adrian, one of the men said, Marcus, an investor from Switzerland. Your wife is remarkably quiet. Does she always observe so carefully? Emma prefers to listen before speaking, Adrian replied smoothly. A quality I find invaluable. And what has she heard tonight? Victor's voice cut through the pleasantries like a blade. Anything interesting? The room went silent. Emma felt every eye on her. This was the moment, the test Victor had orchestrated. Prove your loyalty to us, or prove your loyalty to your husband. Choose. I've heard, Emma said carefully, that you're all very good at hiding the truth in plain sight. She set down her wine glass. But not good enough. Victor's expression darkened. Excuse me. Adrian's hand found hers under the table, a warning or support, she couldn't tell. The inventory you're discussing isn't products, Emma continued, her voice steady despite her terror. It's people. The shipping routes aren't about goods, they're about trafficking, and every one of you is complicit. The silence turned lethal. Emma, Adrian said quietly, but she couldn't stop now. I know because I've been recording this entire conversation. She pulled out her phone, set it on the table. And in approximately 30 seconds, this recording will upload to servers in 3 different countries. Servers that feed directly to international law enforcement databases. Victor lunged for the phone, but Adrian was faster. He stood, positioned himself between Emma and the table full of suddenly dangerous men. It's over, Victor, Adrian said. Catherine spent a year building the case against you. I've spent 3 years finishing her work, and Emma just collected the final piece of evidence we needed. You bastard, Victor hissed. You married her just to finish what you started when you killed my wife. Adrian's voice was steel. Yes. The room erupted. Men reached for phones, for exits, for anything that might save them, but the doors burst open, and suddenly the room flooded with police, Austrian officers coordinating with Interpol, moving with practiced precision. Emma watched, heart pounding, as Victor Kozlov was handcuffed and read his rights in 3 languages. He locked eyes with her one final time. You were never invisible, he said. You were the most dangerous person in that entire building. 72 hours later, they stood in Adrian's office, the same room where this had started 4 days and a lifetime ago. The prosecutor says your testimony will be crucial, Adrian said, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Victor's organization is unraveling. 23 arrests across 9 countries so far. Good. Emma stared out at New York, wondering how the same skyline could look so different now. And Catherine's case. Reopened. They found evidence linking Victor to the brake line tampering. Adrian's voice caught. She'll finally have justice. I'm sorry you couldn't save her. I couldn't. He moved beside her at the window. But I could honor her, finish her work, and maybe not let her death be meaningless. They stood in silence for a moment. The money, Adrian said quietly. The contract. It's all being transferred today. You held up your end of the bargain. So did you. You protected me, just like you promised. I should never have put you in danger in the first place. You gave me a choice, Emma corrected. Maybe not a good choice, but a choice nonetheless. And I made it. For my mother, yes, but also because, she turned to face him, because you looked at me and saw someone capable, someone brave, someone who mattered. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Adrian's expression softened. You were always those things, Emma. You just needed someone to notice. So what happens now? She asked. The 72 hours are over, the contract's complete. I go back to being invisible? Is that what you want? Emma considered the question, really considered it. 4 days ago, she'd been drowning in bills and anonymity, a person who moved through the world leaving barely a ripple. Now she was someone who'd helped bring down an international criminal organization, someone who'd faced her terror and chosen courage. No, she said finally. I don't think I want to be invisible anymore. Adrian smiled, a real smile this time, unguarded and genuine. Good, because I'm going to need a new head of security, someone smart enough to think 3 steps ahead, someone brave enough to walk into danger, someone I trust. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a future." He extended his hand, not as a boss, not as a desperate man making an impossible bargain, but as an equal. "If you'll have it." Emma looked at his hand, at his face, at the possibility stretching out before her like an unexpected road. She took his hand. 72 hours, she said. "That's how long it took to change everything." "And a lifetime," Adrian replied, "is how long I'll spend making sure you never regret it." Outside the window, New York glittered with a million stories. Theirs was just beginning. If you made it this far, don't forget to leave your comment, your like, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new stories. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.